Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri, homage to all the benevolent lineage masters, the Dharma infinitely profound and sought as rarely encountered even in millennials. Now that we're able to hear, study, and follow it, may we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings. Let us generate the supreme bodhicitta. This time, we are studying Homage and Offerings to the 16 elders together. The main purpose is that you will all pray regularly for the long life of the great master in 10 directions. Frankly speaking, some Buddhists are quite narrow-minded. They care greatly about the gurus who have a close relationship with them. They would pray for their longevity, except that, as to noble masters in this world who possess the 3 higher trainings of discipline, meditation, and wisdom, and who are like the wish-fulfilling jewels, they don't seem to care much about. They solely think about their own teachers. This is unreasonable. When we are making aspirations, we should pray that in countless different realms, may the countless great masters who truly benefit sentient beings live long. If their lives can be extended for just one additional day, this would bring inconceivable benefits to beings because of their virtues and powers. We should all pray and recite this prayer sincerely. Some may wonder whether this prayer will actually work. Such ignorant thought is due to their lack of systematic study of the Dharma. Some people might think the story of the 16 Arhats are just fairy tales. They also doubt about the inconceivable power of the 3 jewels. This is understandable. Their worldly experiences are accustomed to erroneous ideas of Buddhism. In addition, they rarely exposed to Buddhism, so they lack basic knowledge. For instance, people who know nothing about Oriental medicine may generate doubts as they hear about doctor explain the ingredients of Oriental medicine. The other day when I was in Chengdu University of Traditional Chinese Medicine, many young people are majoring in traditional Tibetan medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, etc. Actually, one of my relatives is an expert in Tibetan medicine. He often told me stories about Tibetan medicine. He would always say that in order to study Tibetan medicine thoroughly, it was absolutely essential to learn about its extraordinary origins. It can be tracked back to the rishis who were emanated by medicine Buddha. The history of Tibetan medicine is full of miraculous stories, but medical scientists and experts today tend to avoid this topic because they don't really know much about this topic. Likewise, in traditional Chinese medicine, such as in the Compendium Materia Medica, there are many records of miraculous events which could be considered as superstition by some people who don't understand this subject, but that's due to the faults of their own lack of knowledge. While learning the life story of the 16 Arhats, we should have a correct understanding. Otherwise, some may consider them as interesting legends like those who compose many fabricated stories in the journey to the West, based on the historical book of the Great Tang records on the Western regions. Nowadays, many people like to work on specialized objects that they don't know about. They would make inaccurate movies about professional subjects or historical events, thereby attracting many criticism. since Buddhism is very profound. Its truth can only be gained through its own teachings and terminology. It is not necessary and would be utterly futile to try to adjust its teachings. Of course, it's okay to change the words that we use when we express the Dharma. For instance, I've been told that my recently published book, Tales for Transforming Adversity and Achieved by Doing, are very popular. This may be because I expressed Buddhist teachings, such as how to dispel destructive emotions, in a way that can easily be understood by modern people. But the contents and stories of this book are completely consistent with the Buddhism teachings. So when monastics or lay practitioners share Dharma teachings, it's important to convey the teaching in a modern and easy to understand way. But this should not lead to an over-secularization of the content, since this would completely alter the true meaning and the flavor of the original teaching. Some people today might find it very difficult to listen to Dharma teaching on professional subjects like Buddhist logic and Madhyamika. Even lecture on this prayer might be a bit difficult for those who haven't listened to any Buddhist lectures before. But it's impossible to alter the teaching in order to tailor to you in a too secularized way. So you should really train yourself in various ways so that you can enter into the profound ocean of the Dharma. That's the main purpose of having this teaching. Another reason why I wanted to teach this prayer is to encourage you to uphold and propagate the Dharma, which is the responsibility of everyone. Why do I stress this? While Buddhists today are facing a not very positive situation, generally speaking, people think religion is a serious matter and they don't make casual comments about it. Mahayana Buddhism, however, seemed to be an exception to this rule. Everyone seemed to be freely to criticize it. They believe that since Buddhism emphasizes selflessness and compassion, they can criticize them freely. For instance, many people, including some media and celebrities, would make frequent open attacks on Buddhist ethics, Buddhist teachings, and so forth. But they don't dare to do the same to other religions, fearing that there might be repercussions. Facing such situations, Buddhists won't and don't need to respond with violence or weapons. Buddhism has never allowed any form of violence born out of anger. However, we need to clarify the truth when some people intentionally make a big deal out of small incidents, such as behavior of just one Buddhist practitioner. For example, last year, several news published stories criticizing a monk for drinking alcohol. It's actually hard to tell what the facts are. If this were another religious tradition, however, even if their followers were seen to behave improperly on numerous occasions, the news would probably remain silent for fear of offending the followers of that religion. Regarding this topic, I communicated with some people. I said that practicing patience does not mean that Buddhists must tolerate all kinds of criticism, including the unjustified ones. Facing unreasonable judgments about Buddhism, we Buddhists should try to establish the truth through debates and other justifiable ways of standing up for ourselves. We should not just remain silent. Selflessness and compassion in Buddhism don't really mean putting up with absolutely everything. Actually, many Buddhist scriptures, such as the Golden Light Sutra and the Just King, contain not just spiritual instructions, but also guidance on dealing with worldly affairs. Nowadays, many people fail to acquire the wisdom to deal with worldly affairs. When people criticize them, Buddhists tend to be unconcerned. So worldly people take advantage of it and freely criticize Buddhism. They would think twice about criticizing other religions. Certainly, as Mahayana Buddhists, we don't advocate the use of illegal or inappropriate means in response to such attacks. But when some people intentionally insult Buddhists, we need to stand up to clarify the facts whenever necessary. As stated in this prayer, for the Dharma to flourish, it's very important that masters in 10 directions remain long in this world. This is because beings in this degeneration world can hardly see Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in person, but they can see their manifestations, those great masters. So only when the great masters who truly uphold the Dharma live long can the Dharma be widely propagated. That is the responsibility of us all. However, many Buddhists just mind their own practice and care about their own gurus. They always think how to collect alms for their own teachers. Bad habits like this are evident among Buddhists in places like Han Chinese regions. So the most important thing when teaching the Dharma in places like Han Chinese regions is to try to help them gain a proper understanding, correcting any superstitions. Most people are well educated and can understand the Dharma properly if they receive the right guidance. So Buddhist teachers and students should not act in a way that make people believe Buddhism is just about collecting funds, conducting rituals, and talking about supernatural things. When we propagate the Dharma, we can start from worldly engagement, such as alleviating people's pain and making a positive contribution to society. Buddhism can be applied in many aspects of life to benefit people. From the bottom of my heart, I truly believe that Dharma is for all humanity. It's not a dogma exclusive to Buddhists, nor the private property of a privileged group of people. The Dharma is a supreme source of spiritual support that all people and all living beings need and can benefit from. Sadly, some people fail to understand the true meaning of Buddhism and restrict Buddhism to the limited scope of religion or a philosophy exclusive to a certain group of people. As a result, only a small number of people having access to the truth of Buddhism. In fact, Buddhism has no bounds in terms of race, nationality, or location. It can nourish the minds of all living beings. Therefore, whether we are monastics or lay practitioners, having studied the Dharma, we should plan how to make the best of our short lives and help people to truly benefit from the Dharma teachings. I have seen some influential people who After reading or learning about Buddhist teachings, they share their own experiences and understanding with others around, thus inspiring thousands of people. Although they don't claim to be Dharma teachers, wearing robes and saying that they are turning the Dharma wheel, what they have contributed to the propagation of the Buddhist teachings far surpasses many so-called Dharma teachers. Nowadays, many exceptional people use a number of skillful means to share the truth of Buddhism with people around them, thereby introducing them to the Dharma and alleviating the suffering in their lives. These actions align with the ultimate intent of all the Buddhas. The sole intent of the Buddhas is to help beings free from all sufferings and attain happiness. Unlike ordinary people, Buddhas never seek their own happiness and welfare just to eat and sleep well or to recover from a cold. In order to spread the Dharma and benefit beings, it's necessary that you first study and understand the teaching yourself. When studying the Dharma, it's important that you make good use of every single minute. Don't have a casual attitude, as if you're listening to a story or watching a movie. Some people keep checking the clock. Some listen with their eyes closed. Some chant mantras. Well, it's important that you listen carefully with full concentration. If even wise people need to concentrate in order to grasp the meaning, how can those of lesser faculties understand the profound meaning of the Dharma when they're absent-minded? Since many cultures have no history or tradition of Buddhism teaching, they seem to think that Dharma is easy to understand. Well, this is not true. When you attend a Dharma teaching for 2 hours, 1 hour, or half an hour, it's important to reflect on all the teachings that you have heard. Ask yourself, what have I learned from this lecture? Will I be able to share them with others later? Regardless of your age, we all need to train our wisdom and memory in this way. We cannot just attend lectures passively in our lay Buddhist study group. Some people don't have interest in studying the teachings. They attend the teaching just so they will not be marked as absent. People with this kind of attitude is called Dharma stubborn in Buddhism, or an old oil stick in colloquial Chinese. Once a dough stick has been fried in oil and become an oil stick, then after a couple of days, however much you might try to fry it again, it won't soften. These impervious practitioners are compared to the leather of a butter bag that cannot be softened by the butter in Pacharan Rinpoche's The Words of My Perfect Teacher. So please do not listen to the teaching with this kind of attitude. Well, in my class, I've seen several people doze off, but not for so long. Sometimes they snore, and their snoring sound wakes them up.
好，下面我们开始讲什么啊？我刚才的开始讲了，是吧？
The second verse states, we pay homage to the noble older Jitta who dwells in the crystal forest on Sage Mountain, surrounded by 100 Arhats, and makes the gesture of equanimity with his two hands. Grant your blessing so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. The first line is, we pay homage to the noble older Jitta. The Tibetan name for Jitta is Mapampa, which means undefeatable, suggesting that this noble older is undefeatable. The verse continues, he dwells in the crystal forest on Sage Mountain, while according to another source, he dwells on Vulture Peak. Anyway, he resides in the forest called the crystal forest of that mountain. Next line says he is surrounded by 100 arhats. Ajita has an entourage of 100 arhats, or 1,500 arhats according to another source. It's actually reasonable or understandable. For instance, when we wrote the biography of His Holiness, we found that when he was teaching the great perfection of peaceful Manjushri, there was about 1,000 people present. When he hosted the Sukhavati Dharma assembly, there were tens of thousands of people who attended. So it's understandable that the number of Ajita's retinue should vary according to different sources. Next line states he makes the gesture of equanimity with his two hands. Yesterday I said that if the Buddha and Bodhisattvas can appear differently before different beings. For instance, different great masters have seen Manjushris in different forms, such as black Manjushri, white Manjushri, one faith with 2 arms, one faith with 4 arms. The noble beings seen by each master can differ in their forms, so there can be different descriptions of their gestures, body colors, and so forth. In the past, when many great Han Chinese masters saw some of the 16 arhats, they appeared the same as how they were depicted in paintings and sculptures in traditional Han Chinese culture. There are also records of Tibetan masters who have seen these arhats. Yesterday, I told a story about Atisha's encounter with Angesha. There are more stories. One day, at Dragyapa Monastery, Atisha was talking to Jongtenpa when an old monk approached and prostrated them. The old monk said he would follow Atisha's instructions and committed himself to virtual states. He would do so by transforming himself into a young monk and study for a year or 2 in a monastery elsewhere. He then said, "It's now time for me to return to Mount Kailash," and vanished into thin air. The monks present there were amazed and asked what happened. Jongtenpa replied that the old monk was venerable and Angesha, and he had returned to secret Mount Kailash on another occasion while visiting Nietang. An old Indian monk approached Atisha. He conversed with Atisha in Sanskrit for quite a long time. The old monk then disappeared. People asked Atisha who he was, and Atisha told them he was Angesha. So if you can go to Mount Kailash one day, there is a good chance you might see the elder Angesha there. Mount Kailash is close to the border between Nepal and China, and both Chinese and Nepali border guards stationed there. There was a Khenpo at our academy who once tried to go to India via Mount Kailash without a passport. His Holiness might have told this story before. This Khenpo's name is called Chopa. There were some hidden pathways near the mountain through which those who don't have passport can cross the border to Nepal. Once Khenpo Chopa took one of this path, accompanied by 2 other people. After traveling a long time, Khenpo Chopa said, "We have arrived in Nepal. We're free of worries now." Just then, the Khenpo started to sing a Vajra song about fearlessness at the top of his voice. This immediately attracted the attention of the border guards. He certainly had a very strong voice. Once Khenpo joined us on a visit to Mount Wutai. He recited prayers to Manjushri and Vimalamitra while circumambulating the great white stupa, and his voice was so loud that we could hear him from far away, even in Shanzai Cave. When we were all together at Larongar, Khenpo once taught the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva in the district of Mandala. Even though we were staying in another district, quite some distance away, we could still hear his voice when he was teaching. Anyhow, when he thought that he had crossed the border, he, a very tall man, sat down on a large rock and loudly sang a Vajra song about fearless. Then Khenpo and his friends were all arrested and imprisoned for 1 or 2 months. At that time, I was accompanying His Holiness on a visit to India, and then they came to India and told us the story. Khenpo later went to the U.S. and passed into nirvana there. Today, we will talk about Jitta or Mapamba. As Buddhists, when we go to temples, we should know these Arhats and what aspirations to make before them. However, some people in Han Chinese reason, Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike, don't seem to know this. They attach coins to the nose of the Arhats and do other inappropriate actions. When we see these Arhats in these temples, we should know that they made great aspiration to maintain the Dharma. So it's very important that we pray to them for the flourishing of the Dharma. Why aren't you looking at his pictures? Did the pictures of Arhats show on the screen? No? Does the Jitta make the gesture of equanimity in the Tanka? In the Tibetan Tanka, the elder Jitta is depicted with this gesture. Can you see it clearly? I would like to talk about the benefits of praying to a Jitta. Praying to a Jitta can dispel various disasters, harm, and demonic hindrances. In the meantime, it can eliminate negative karma from past lives and increase virtuous merit. Therefore, we will attain great blessings when we pray to a Jitta. Next, we will talk about Jitta's or Mapamba's life story. A Jitta was born into a wealthy family. The family was already rich before having a Jitta, and after he was born, they become even richer, incomparable by other families. When a Jitta was born, his body bore many auspicious marks. Furthermore, due to his merit, an elephant adorned with various treasures appeared in his house. And people called him the one who owns an elephant. Around that time, King Pasenadi's wife gave birth to a beautiful princess whose body bore auspicious marks resembling a monastic robe. Thus, the princess became known as the one who owns a monastic robe. As time went by, Ajita and the princess grew up. One day, the two met in a forest and fell in love. Ajita wanted to marry the princess, but as a commoner, it was almost impossible for him to marry the daughter of a king. In India at that time, the caste system was deeply entrenched. Therefore, he tried to please King Pasenadi as best he could. One time, he offered the king 2 valuable tusks from his elephant. The king was very pleased and asked Ajita what he wanted in return. But Ajita said that he needed nothing. The king was impressed by Ajita. In the king's eye, Ajita seemed to be a very good-looking and solemn young man. Later, Ajita presented the king with more elephant tusks. The king asked again what he wanted. Ajita replied, "I desire neither wealth nor power. I only wish that I could marry the princess." Upon hearing this, King Pasenadi didn't know how to reply. So the king said to him, "I will reply to you tomorrow morning." After Ajita left, the king consulted his ministers. On one hand, I should not refuse this excellent young man. He is handsome, endowed with merit, and has many good qualities, and I don't want to end my friendship with him. Nonetheless, I'm hesitant to permit this marriage, since marriage between a member of the royalty and a commoner would give rise to a great deal of gossip and is improper. The minister then advised the king on what to do the next day. The minister's idea was probably based on the belief that the elephant of Ajita was wild and untamed, thus should not allow anyone to ride it. They believed that it would be impossible for Ajita to ride the elephant. So the next morning, King Pasenadi told Ajita that he could marry the princess on condition that he ride his elephant to the palace. Ajita then came to the palace riding the elephant. The king was amazed and wanted to try to ride the elephant himself, but the elephant ran away. Witnessing this, the king was convinced of Ajita's merit and allowed him to marry the princess. Later, King Pasenadi, Ajita, and the princess went to the residence of Buddha Shakyamuni. King Pasenadi asked the Buddha, "Why Ajita can possess such a precious elephant? How come my daughter can become his wife?" The Buddha told them a story. During the time of Vipassana Buddha, he said, once a boy and a girl were playing by a roadside. When they saw Vipassana Buddha passing by, the boy offered his toy elephant to Vipassana Buddha because He was filled with reverence at that time. The Buddha then blessed the boy so that in all his future lives he would receive riches from a treasury elephant. The girl was greatly impressed by the magnificence of Vipassana Buddha's monastic robe and aspired, "How gorgeous the monastic robe is. I wish I could have one myself." So the Buddha blessed her to possess such a robe in her future lives. Meanwhile, they both had the wish to marry each other in the future. For all these reasons, in this and many of their previous lives, they have been a loving couple. The Buddha then taught them Dharma, and the couple attained the path of seeing. Later, Ajita took ordination. Through diligent practice, he attained arhathood. It's not clear as to whether the princess attained arhathood. There should be a record, but I can't remember it. Since then, he was revered by people as a venerable elder. As an arhat, Ajita has eliminated all destructive emotions and is completely liberated from samsara. So we should pray to Ajita along with 100 or 1,500 arhats followers, as well as innumerable arhats for their blessings, because each one of them has miraculous powers. Historical records document some of these miraculous stories. During recent times, when Western scholars travel to India and other places, they have seen arhats as well. I have shared stories like this before, and I will tell you more in the future. That's all about the second elder, Ajita. We should often recite this verse and pray to Ajita to grant his blessing so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. The third verse states, "We pay homage to the noble elder Vanavashin, who dwells in a cave on 7-leaf mountain surrounded by 1,400 arhats and holds a fly whisk while making the gesture of threatening. Grant your blessing so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread." Noble elder Vanavashin is called Nananepa in Tibetan, which means forest dweller. Next line, he dwells in a cave on 7-leaf mountain. 7-leaf mountain is the place where the first Buddhist council for the compilation of the Buddha's teaching took place. Though this cave does not appear to be large, historically, it could accommodate 500 arhats for the first Buddhist council. According to the Nadimichavadana, this mountain is called Habitable Mountain. Anyway, 7-leaf is a type of tree, and the cave is named such because it's within a 7-leaf forest. Next line states, he is surrounded by 1,400 arhats and holds a fly whisk while making the threatening gesture. Accounts in other sources might be slightly different. There are some minor mistakes in the handouts that we gave you. I haven't thoroughly proofread them. The hand gesture of this elder and some other annotation are incorrect. The lecture notes in the future should have the correct version. Some features of this arhats are clearly depicted in Nadimichavadana and Ding Guangpeng's painting, but their descriptions are not quite the same. Anyway, Vanavashin dwells in the 7-leaf mountain. According to one historical record, he resided there practicing even before following the Buddha. 7-leaf mountain is located near Rajgriha and is close to Vulture Peak. Some people might think, how come I didn't meet Vanavasin and his 1,400 followers when I went to the cave on Seven Leaf Mountain in India? Well, actually, those of you who have studied the treasure of Abhidhamma and Vinaya should know that these arhats don't abide in the form of a physical body like ours. According to autobiography of Dunda Limpa, when he was little, as he dug the ground, he saw a monk in a cave who told him that he had abided there for more than 3,000 years. So when we build cabins in Larangar, don't dig too deep, just in case you uncover an arhat, as Dunda Limpa did. Regarding Vanavasin's life, it appears that there are not many records of it. Vanavasin was born into a wealthy Brahmin family. Ever since he was a little boy, he rejected the mundane life and looked upon his family's wealth as something temporary, like clouds in the sky. He understood that one needs to guard the wealth, pay taxes to the king, and so forth. So, wealth is the source of afflictions. The more wealth one accumulates, the more afflictions one has. Understanding this, Vanavasin relinquished all his wealth and set out for the Seven Leaf Mountain. He diligently practiced there in a cave within the forest of the 7 leaf trees and attended the 4th level of dhyana. At that time, the Buddha Shakyamuni knew that it was time to guide Vanavasin to spiritual liberation. He came to the forest on 7 Leaf Mountain. Upon seeing the Buddha, Vanavasin was filled with boundless veneration and faith and requested to take refuge and follow his teaching. The Buddha said, "Come, bhikkhu," and with that, Vanavasin became a bhikkhu. After receiving teachings from the Buddha, he eventually attained arhathood. Some sources say that Vanavasin attained arhathood in front of Mangoyana. Once when Mangoyana taught his disciples the verse, "Commit not a single unwholesome action, cultivate a wealth of virtue to tame this mind of ours," this is the teaching of the Buddha. Vanavasin overheard this teaching, and by contemplating on its meaning, he attained arhathood. Anyhow, if we pray to Vanavasin through the power of this threatening gesture that he makes, all harms from gods, nagas, rakshasas, humans, non-humans, and other beings will be removed. It's similar to the way that Padmasambhava subjugated all the demons and Tirthikas through his threatening gesture. Meanwhile, the fly whisk that Vanavasin holds brings countless beings the cool breeze and rain of Dharma, liberating them from burning heat of the destructive emotions. So we should pray to this elder Vanavasin, who has attained the fruition of immortality, to grant his blessings, so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. Let's look at one more verse today, which is the 4th Arhat. The verse states, "We pay homage to the noble elder Kalika, who dwells on Copper Island, Jambudvipa, surrounded by 1,100 Arhats, and holds golden earrings. Grant your blessing so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread." Noble elder Kalika is called Duden Temple in Tibetan and Kalika in both Chinese and Sanskrit. Next line states he dwells on Copper Island in Jambudvipa. Some say Copper Island is modern-day Sri Lanka. Next line states he is surrounded by 1,100 Arhats. The Nadimitra Vadana states Kalika lives on a continent named Simihala, together with 1,000 Arhat followers. Next line states he holds golden earrings. While some Chinese sources say it's golden bells. Actually, both claims are fine because in the pictures they look both earrings and bells. The earrings of people have today might function as bells, but it seems like the golden objects held by Kalika can function as both. We pray to Kalika, who resides in Jambudvipa and is surrounded by 1,100 followers, all of whom have attained intended fruition of arhathood. We pray to them to grant their blessings so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. The life story of Kalika can be found in several sources. The 100 Deeds records a story about him called the story of Jasmine. Kalika was born in a wealthy householder's family. When he was born, there were a rain of jasmine flowers from the sky. Thus, he was named Jasmine. In the beginning, however, the householder has no child and was greatly troubled by this, as inside. It seems that people today, as well as in the past, cared a great deal about having children as if all their hope were placed on the offsprings. Therefore, parents get very distressed when their children choose to follow a monastic life, even more so nowadays than before. Back to the story, this householder made continuous offerings and prayers to the god, hoping that he could have a child. Finally, his wife became pregnant, and the couple were overjoyed. At that time, Aniruddha, the foremost disciple of the Buddha in the development of divine eye, observed that it was time to tame the entire family of the householder. Therefore, he went alone to the householder's home to collect alms. The householder asked, "Noble one, why have you come alone with no attendant?" Aniruddha said, "I don't have any attendant. Can you help me find one?" The householder replied, "My wife is pregnant now. If she gives birth to a boy, I shall offer him to you as an attendant in the future." Some gurus today also say similar things. If I were a boy, I would be able to attend my teacher. Too bad, I'm a girl. Anyway, after the householder said that proposal, Aniruddha accepted his offer and left. Afterwards, many auspicious signs appeared when the householder's child was born. For instance, there was a rain of jasmine flower fell all around the house. As time passed by, Jasmine grew up and gained mastery of numerous fields of secular knowledge. Aniruddha saw the time was ripe for Jasmine to take ordination. So he once again went to householder's home and politely asked that Jasmine now become his attendant. Jasmine was very happy and willing to do this. The householder kept his promise and let his son go. Jasmine followed Venerable Aniruddha and received ordination and Dharma teaching from him. Soon afterwards, he attained Arhathood. Then he decided to liberate beings, starting from his parents. He exhibited miraculous powers before them and taught the Dharma most suited to them. They took refuge and eventually attained the fruition of stream enter, the first of 4 results of the Hinayana path. The bhikkhus asked Buddha Shakyamuni, what caused Jasmine to be born with such auspicious signs and attain arhathood? The Buddha told the bhikkhus, when the human lifespan was 20,000 years, Kashyapa Buddha appeared in the world. At that time, there was a householder whose son became a monastic practitioner. He often offered garlands of jasmine flowers to stupas and made ritual aspirations. By virtue of this, he now became Jasmine, who enjoys such results. There are more details in the sutra, which you can read for yourself later. Through this story, as well as similar ones we've learned in the sutras, we should know that it's very important to make aspirations. Of course, as practitioners, it would be best if we could attain a certain level of accomplishment in this life. But in case we're unable to do so, we can at least make aspiration to gain attainment in the future. For instance, if in this lifetime we're unable to guide our parents towards liberation, we can aspire to liberate them once we become enlightened in a future lifetime. If in this life we don't possess the ability to propagate the Dharma, we can aspire to propagate the Dharma in all our future lives. Each one of us can make this kind of aspirations. Tibetans seem to form a habit of making aspirations. Yesterday, several Tibetans came to the shrine hall to visit me. While we were reciting the King of Aspiration prayer, since they were completely illiterate, they just sat there with their palms closed at the whole time. I think each one of them must have been making the sincere aspiration to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. This is because aspiration is the core of most Tibetan Dharma practice. I wonder if all of you make such a noble aspiration when you pray. Honestly speaking, even though some of us have studied many teachings, including 5 great treatises in terms of making aspirations, we're no better than those illiterate old Tibetans. They really genuinely aspire to benefit beings without any motivation related to the 8 worldly concerns. They don't pretend to be altruistic in front of other people. Is not necessary. While of course, it's important to study the teachings very well. However, for some people, such a study may result in filling their heads with even more discursive thoughts. They end up doubting the extraordinary deeds of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and the existence of the past and future lives. Meanwhile, they seem to be incapable of making sincere aspiration in front of sacred objects. When making aspirations, you should sincerely make the aspiration to benefit countless beings and attain full enlightenment of Buddhahood. But people don't make aspiration like this. They only care about themselves. Maybe you have been practicing for so many years and feel quite good about yourself. Yet, it should be a shame if you fail to value the importance of making virtuous aspirations. aspirations is very important. Whether we wish to take rebirth in Sukhavati or gain attainment through Dzogchen practice, we all need to make the corresponding aspiration first. Therefore, we need to make aspiration part of our daily practice. It's also very important that we put every effort into our Dharma study and practice. Most practitioners today, including monastics, don't put enough effort into their Dharma practice. It's very difficult to eliminate our deep-rooted destructive emotion. If we only practice for a few days, only practice a little for a few days, some people want to take ordination. But without diligent Dharma study and practice, ordination alone won't eliminate your afflictive emotions. We also need to accumulate merit. This is mentioned in the story of Jasmine. In his past life, Jasmine realized that he would not only engage in Dharma study, but also accumulate merit. Therefore, he made offerings of jasmine flowers and other things to the three jewels. By virtue of this, he was reborn with wealth and merit in all his successive lives. There are many people today who suddenly became very wealthy as a result of their past positive karma. You might be aware of cases like this. I've met some such people. They were living on the streets, leading a miserable life 10 years ago. Then, all of a sudden, they become very wealthy and now enjoy a life full of every effort and pleasure. Superficially, we could say that they made their fortunes by investing in real estate and other industries. But the root cause is the merit they accumulated in their past lives. When their positive karma is exhausted, however, this wealth will likely vanish like bubbles. All prosperity, including reputation and wealth, come from merit accumulated in past lives. I'm deeply convinced of this, but some people whose minds are full of discursive thoughts may doubt this. Some people are always skeptical about such topics. Therefore, they readily accept all kinds of non-virtuous ideas and actions. This is surely a sign of their lack of merit. We also need to pray to the noble beings so that our positive energy will continuously increase and our negative energy will reduce as much as possible. Otherwise, in this degeneration age, it's pitiful if you're a layperson who busies yourself with worldly preoccupations. Even worse, some monastics start to behave improperly and ask for offerings from devotees. In that sense, the monastics would be more pitiable than lay people, since at least lay people support themselves through their own abilities and work, while monastics live from offerings, pay no attention to three higher trainings, and do not cultivate virtue within. In short, whether you're a monastic or lay person, you should focus on your inner growth and development. Don't think this lightly and think that you're already doing a great job. At any rate, it's important that we pray to the elders regularly to grant their blessings so that the life of the teacher may be secure and the teachings may flourish and spread. In this way, sentient beings will certainly obtain happiness. Okay, we'll finish here today.
Zhibum Tsolen Zhova Zhova